Well, it's noon here on the East Coast, and this is news that you can use from YAA with your hosts, Zach and Ray. And, well, this is a big day for us here at YAA because I do believe we have some special guests, Zach, do we not?
Pops, I think someone's at the door. Can you let him in?
We got a lot of faces on the screen today, Dad.
We
Today
need more doors.
We need more doors. Today is a special day. We are joined by the team over at Black Book. Jared Kalfas, president of Black Book. Laura Wehunt, if I'm not mistaken, Laura, you are the vice president of valuations or of automotive valuations over at Black Book. And Alex Yurchenko, Alex is the chief data science officer at Black Book. And Pops, you and I, if I'm not mistaken, we're still just college dropouts who make YouTube videos and try and help people. So it's a great cast of characters we have today.
Yes, the good news is that we have 3 experts, and then there's the 2 of us.
Oh, and my girlfriend's here. Hey, Laura, thanks for joining. Okay, Pops, first question to you.
Okay, first question, and I know that Zach and I take a lot of heat for this because, well, and my son in particular, because every week he's standing around with a giant pin saying the used car price bubble is popping. Okay, which I believe he believes in hyperbole, but that's besides the point. Is what we have been seeing over the last 7 or 8 weeks with declines in used car values at the wholesale level, is that for real?
It is for real. We have been seeing prices, particularly the last 4 weeks, having, really large declines. So, as you said, they started 7 to 8 weeks ago where we started to see the market coming down. But in the last month, we have really seen heavy declines, almost 1% per week for the overall market. And then seeing even larger declines in some of your larger segments. So the full size crossovers, full size luxury crossovers, and a lot of your luxury segments. Really all the luxury segments have been seeing some really large depreciation. And some of that did start when fuel prices went up, interest rates have gone up. All of those things have just put that downward pressure on some of those more expensive units.
Is looking historically, would you normally expect to see something like that this time of year?
Well, it's not abnormal to see declines this time of year, but it is abnormal to see this level of declines. This is much higher than anything you would typically even see anytime throughout the year, but definitely not this time of year. We have seen in the past some heavy declines, in Q4, depending on what new OEMs are doing with incentive levels. If they start to put those heavy incentives towards the end of the year, that really puts heavy pressure on those used values. But still, really, this is almost 1% per week with some segments, 1.5% to 2%. That's really large when you have it week after week after week. Mm-hmm. But I am going to say all of that to say you got to remember where we started from with these declines. So let's put it on perspective. We've still got a lot of used vehicles out there that are selling for higher than their new car cost was, 3-4 years ago. So it's still a crazy market, and it still can be a risky time to pay these top prices. You have to really be careful about what you are spending and thinking about how long you're going to be keeping that car for. What is your plan? Are you a person that likes to keep something for a year, or do you keep something for 10 years? Your risk level there is something to take into consideration, just because we are still at very high levels, just because of, a month of really heavy declines. We are starting from a very, very high level. So let's, keep it in perspective a little bit there too.
If I may, I want to pull up on the screen, and we reference this all the time, even when the Black Book team isn't with us. We look at charts that look just like this, right? This comes from the weekly Black Book Market Insights. Encourage you to go to blackbook.com and check it out yourself. And I want to bring attention to the history on this chart, because the axis here is time, and then we have the percentage change in values. And we can see in the past, every time we've seen a decrease in wholesale used car prices, we've seen a consummate increase, decrease, increase, decrease, increase, decrease, slight increase, decrease. My question for the Black Book team, maybe this is more you, Alex, I'm not sure, but my question for the team is, should we be sitting here bracing for the next increase, the next one that's going to go back up to the right, or are we in a period of time where now it seems like, okay, you know what, used car prices are starting to normalize? Because yeah, you're right, Laura, they went up 30, 40, 50% last year. They can't just do that forever. So are we on the precipice of seeing things just flip back around like we've seen in the past?
So if you can put the graph back on the screen, so that picture is basically the last 2.5 years. This is for when pandemic started. The gray line is your normal, typical pre-pandemic, pre-COVID behavior, where you have small increases in the spring, late spring, some in the summer, so that's spring market. But typically, you see vehicle depreciate most of the year. As Laura mentioned, high depreciation in Q4, but you still see depreciation throughout the year, except for that spring market. Those very high peaks and low valleys. This is pandemic. Last 2.5 years, any kind of seasonality in the market was out of the window, and we continue to see this 2022. When we started, we thought we came back to some kind of normality. First few months of the year, we saw a little bit higher than normal depreciation, but it was expected. But then everything back to abnormal year. This new sales, lack of new sales, is still driving the market. So no, I don't think we're going to see any appreciation anytime soon. I don't think we're going to see these large depreciations for long, but we are expecting depreciation throughout through the end of the year and into the next year. The big unknown, the big I guess still elephant in the room is new sales, and very low new inventory. How fast OEMs can build them up. We're starting to see the inventory increasing for two reasons. One, the demand is actually a little bit softer on the new side, but also OEMs are able to ship more units. We're still in a very deep hole. I think pre-COVID we had more than 3 million units on the lots. Right now we are about 1.1, 1.2 million units. I don't know if we're gonna ever get back to those 3 million units on the lots, but we're still very low. And with that, incentives extremely low. People are still paying above MSRP for new cars, and that helps with high prices for used vehicles. So we at this point we don't expect any increases. And hopefully we'll get back to some normal seasonality. We'll see some increases next spring, but I think we're a long way from next spring.
If I may, if your supposition is correct, that we should continue to see the wholesale values depreciating, maybe not quite at the level that they have been at over the last 4 weeks, how much further do you think they might go down between now and the spring market?
So for this year, so if you look at the history, the typical annual depreciation is somewhere in the mid teens, depending on the year. Some years at 12%, some years higher. We saw 18% depreciation in 2019 because of heavy incentives and a large number of lease returns. For this year, we expect depreciation to be about 15%. So if you step back and you look at the year and disregard all the months, it will look like a normal year in terms of depreciation. Absolutely no regular seasonality, but overall we expect at least 15% depreciation for the year. Right now, so we have 4 months left to go. I believe right now we're somewhere at 11-12% for the year. So for the next few months, we're probably going to see 5-6% depreciation. It might slow down depending on new supply. But the expectation is we're just going to continue with depreciation through the year, throughout this year.
Yeah, I think what's concerning, especially on the pre-owned side, Ray and Zach, over the last several weeks, we've seen a decrease in sales conversion rates at wholesale auctions. And that typically means that the dealers have paid up for those vehicles. You know, they paid at the top of the market. They may have paid $20,000 for that vehicle, and now it's worth less, and they can't sell it. And so they're not selling it because it's not bringing at least what they bought it for originally. And while we're not saying that the sky is falling, that's one of those ingredients that we're watching, and one of those catalysts that we're watching, that we're seeing the market shift. That they're underwater and they're trying to break out of those vehicles and they can't, and that's concerning, and that potentially is leading edge.
Wouldn't it then, if you're correct, and I believe you are, wouldn't it make more sense for the dealer to take a smaller loss today, than to hope that he's going to take an even smaller loss in the future, when in reality he knows in his heart of hearts he's going to take a bigger hit in the future?
Yes, as someone that grew up in the wholesale industry, at a very large auction company, we used to say that the first price is the best price, and that you should heed those warnings. But it's a bit of a gambler's mentality, and it's also a bit of, I have to try everything I can, to break out of this, and we don't guess. It's all about the data.
I get it, but one of the things that I learned when I had a retail golf store is just because I paid too much for an item that I wanted to sell didn't mean somebody else was willing to. And just because you paid too much for a used car doesn't mean there should be someone out there that's going to bail you out of that used car.
That's right.
Smart money to me would be to take the money and reinvest it in something that you could buy for considerably less and make back that loss with the future profit on the cheaper vehicle that you just purchased. But that's just me.
Yes.
It's been fascinating to see in the data that you all provide, the retail listings have actually increased and retail values are starting to decline as well. And I think that's a bit of an indication of what you're describing, Pops, which is, okay, I can no longer just turn around, which we have to remember, there was an extended period of time here where wholesalers were literally buying new cars, turning around and selling them at auctions for a profit. So like, that's how crazy the market was. We're no longer in that environment where I can just go to the auction and sell a car and make money. And we're starting to see the volume of listings increase, the days supply of used inventory stay high, and ultimately prices starting to come down. I know I shared it on social media. We were tracking this Jaguar, this F-Type in California, $9,000 retail advertised price drop over 30 days. And sure, that's a bit like hyperbolic because it's already a Jaguar, but I think that is indicative of the direction that the market is going. And that kind of leads me, Laura, to a question for you. One of the notes in the most recent market update was 2 to 8-year-old vehicles versus 0 to 2-year-old used vehicles. We are starting to see a bit of a disparity in depreciation based on not only the type of vehicle, which we've had a comment come through in the chat about plug-in hybrid EVs and battery electric EVs. So we'll talk about that too. But we're starting to see disparities just on the age of vehicles as well, aren't we?
Yes. And so one of the ones that we commented on from the trends that we saw last week was on compact cars. And so a big thing is rental companies are still struggling to get new inventory to replace their fleets for their aging units. So they're still going into the auction lanes to secure inventory to, their stuff is stacking up. It's been 2 years that they've struggled to get new vehicles for their fleets. And so they're still looking for used vehicles. Well, a compact car is your classic rental car. That's what everybody wants. That's going to be your affordable rental vehicle. And you don't have as many players in that market to begin with, your domestic production, your Chevrolet and your Ford, and they've pulled out of the compact car segment. So you've got less players to begin with. And then we've got production struggles on the new side still going on. Toyota recently, reduced their production forecast again for this year. And so we're really seeing the rental companies going after those vehicles. So that 0 to 2-year-old mark is where we have got such low supply available of used vehicles that part of the market has gone up while the older ones are going down. And so it is this interesting dynamic that we're seeing. but it's not even all the way, not all segments are created equal. So as you're talking about like the Jaguar, so we're still seeing a lot of the luxury segments, regardless of year, have been seeing some really heavy declines. And I will also give a plug for our collectible car guide. So we also follow the collectible market, and the collectible market does not always behave the same way as the used market during downtimes of the industry, because a lot of times people will see the collectible cars as a way to put their money into something that is tangible. So it's been really, it's a fun time. I mean, well, I guess fun for me. I love numbers. I love the data. So it's just, it's always very fascinating to watch how all of these different areas of the market are behaving so differently. And then we've still got some segments that are doing well. Some of the commercial things like your full-size vans where, you and I are not going to go buy a full-size van, but there's a huge market out there for it. And there's still such low supply. We had a couple of weeks of some large-ish depreciation, but it's also been increased for 70 something weeks consecutively. Yeah. It's fascinating. And something else I did that popped into my head as we were talking is something I think for consumers to be aware of is the new car price increases. So I think that's also playing a factor that we are seeing these increases each model year, but also mid-model year. This is something that we have never seen at this level before. It's not unheard of for a model to see a mid-year price increase, but we are seeing it across many, many models and multiple increases throughout the model year. And so, it's a crazy time when you can still say, if you can find a dealer that will sell you a vehicle for MSRP, I got a great deal for a new vehicle. And so we're seeing that now. It's still, you want to be careful about when you're buying it and what you're buying, and, really look into that sticker on the vehicle and do your homework.
Pops, my gears are spinning, but go for it.
No, go ahead. I can see your gears were spinning.
Thank you. So Laura, you brought up on the new car side, and Jared, I'll toss this to you. What do you make of what we've seen some of the OEMs recently do with the software essentially becoming a mandatory portion of the vehicle's MSRP? I'm thinking in particular about what General Motors GM has done with some of their products, where you have to get OnStar, and how that's going to impact used vehicle prices down the line. We've had some conversations, my dad and I, about that doesn't materially increase the value of the vehicle, but I'm paying more for it today. Is that just a ploy to increase profit margins today, and it won't actually impact used car prices down the line?
Yeah, I'll let Alex and Laura give you the answer on will it affect the value? But what I can tell you is I don't blame them for trying. I'm not so sure that it will be long-winded, meaning it's going to be that way for a while. They love that's SaaS revenue, right? They love the subscription model and recurring revenue, versus having to try to sell something once and then go grab another customer and pay for that cost of acquisition. They love recurring revenue. I think it was met with a slam door in their faces by public outcry. I'm not so sure that it's going to be long in the tail as far as here for any length of time that way. But I'll let Alex and Laura comment on the residual value issue of it. No pun intended.
I think that's where industry is going in terms of options. A lot of options have become, it's a software. It's, your autopilot, now even, heated seats. So it's going to be a revenue stream for OEMs, and I think everyone is going to go there. It's a software as a service. I don't think it's going to be mandatory, but it's going to be, people will need to subscribe to a lot of those services. But that means there's no value of that option on the used market unless somebody subscribes it. So there's still a lot of questions how to value those that software. How are you going to update it? Do you actually own it, or they can turn it off anytime they want? So there are a lot of questions. I don't think their industry decided on where they're going to go, but software as a service is here to stay.
I'm sorry for having brought up, and Pops, one more word here, which it's like the financing component of this is just mind-boggling to me. Like, let's say a consumer checks all these boxes for different options that they're subscribing to, or the GM OnStar option, which is mandatory for my $1,500 or $1,700. Like, what is the bank lending against there? The collateral is no longer becoming like actual collateral. Like, the bank's lending against software. It's just the industry is moving in a really interesting direction. Also, we can talk about a hybrid, plug-in hybrid EVs and battery electric EVs. Like, a lot of change is occurring right now amidst the past, 2 years that has seen the most change in variability, and volatility in the used car market, I think, that we've ever seen. Anyway, my conjecture, Pops. What's your question?
Well,
for
I
our
was
esteemed
I was
guests?
just going to say, with what GM was doing with OnStar, charging the initial retail customer $1,500 for 3 years worth of OnStar service. If they traded that car in a year's time, that $1,500 is worthless. There is no value associated with that $1,500 at the time you trade it in, because the next person is going to have to subscribe. So there's no intrinsic value that adds to the car as a used car for a software item. There just isn't. And if that vehicle got repossessed, and as we all know, banks love loan to value ratios, and typically they're based on MSRP plus tax, title, and license. Well, if the MSRP is artificially inflated because it has software items that are mandatory to buy that have no real value, well, then I guess the loan to value is out of whack, because they're lending even more against lesser value.
You're power booking from the OEM. Like, this is incredible, honestly.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nicely done, young man. I taught you something over all this time. Yes, the OEMs are power booking, and the banks are the ones that are going to take it in the shorts when these deals go bad. It's just unbelievable.
What remains to be seen is if they'll treat it like a vehicle service contract, where if I purchase it and I cancel it a year from now, can I get that refund back for the prorated amount? And again, we'll learn a lot looking backwards, right? But there's so many variables right now.
So I know we've just got the Black Book crew for a couple more minutes here. Can we talk briefly about electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles? We have seen their prices on the new car side. It's scary, honestly. The average transaction price, thanks to our friends over at Cox Automotive last month, they said was over $66,000 for a new electric vehicle. We've seen Toyota RAV4 Primes, for example, 2-year waits if you want to get your hands on one of them. Laura, Alex, what are we seeing in terms of used car valuations for that particular subset, hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and EVs?
So on the used market, we have been seeing those higher end EVs are actually coming down. So we've been seeing your Teslas and your e-trons and your Taycans and all of those. We've been seeing softening in those values. But again, I think that's a function of they're in that luxury segment. The prices were so high. Majority of those were already transacting over MSRP because you couldn't get one. You can't get one still, really. I mean, there's not a lot of them out there. You look at what's going on with Rivians and the Hummer EV and all of these, specialty EVs out in the market. But where we've seen the most strength is going to be the ones that are your more affordable, because there's not many of those. You don't have many, you've got the Hyundai Ioniq 5, you've got the Mustang Mach-E, who also just went through an MSRP increase of $4,000. Yep. You don't have many on that lower side of the market. We're going to be getting more coming into the market, but there's just not many of those. You've got a few more options on the high end, but the volume's still not there, but their price points are so high and they've been over MSRP. It's a very interesting thing to watch right now. You've got two very separate sets of EVs in the market, and that lower side of where you've actually got those few used EVs have been doing well, particularly when the gas prices went up. That's when we really saw those doing well.
Do you expect EVs in the future, when they become more mainstream than they are today, assuming that they become more mainstream than they are today, do you expect those to depreciate at the same levels that ICE cars have in the past, or do you think the depreciation on electric vehicles will be somewhat different?
So at this moment, we expect a similar depreciation. So right now, EVs outside of Tesla, EVs are depreciating at a higher rate than ICE gas vehicles, but the difference is shrinking. So every year we see them getting closer and closer together. But I think, at least myself, I'm a little bit on the conservative side in terms of mass adoption. Until we get enough sub $30,000 new electric vehicles, we're not going to see a revolution in EV adoption. It's going to be a slow adoption. As you mentioned, 66 or more than $60,000 transaction price is not gonna get us to full electric future. So we're seeing new vehicles in the future that are getting closer, gets to that 30 and sub 30. I think Bolt is now under 30, right? And when they get their federal credit back in January, it's probably going to be even cheaper. We'll see if they're going to increase the prices or not.
They were one of the anomalies for when we saw their 23 pricing, that they actually had a price reduction for 23. Yep. So
when they lost the federal credit, they cut the price to stay affordable, but now they're going to get back that credit in January. So it's going to be interesting to watch. But with EVs, there are still a lot of questions. A lot of OEMs are looking at that battery second use. And if the industry figure out how to use those used batteries, EVs might actually have a better depreciation than gas vehicles, because those used batteries will have enough value to keep the price overall for overall EV high. But it's in the future. The industry is still trying to figure that out.
Well, guys, Jared, Alex, Laura, the thought that's going through my head right now is I got to send you all gift baskets and then beg you to come on for an hour one day, because we could have an awesome conversation. Each of you bring an interesting and different perspective, and it's a wealth of knowledge for our audience. There's 650 people here with us right now who are all just trying to be more educated consumers, and we can't thank you enough for bringing your perspective, your expertise, and all this information to the YAA community. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, these guys help make us look good.
Yes, every day. We appreciate it. Enjoy your
Thanks,
Wednesday, guys. We'll be in touch soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, Pops. I don't know how or when we got fortunate enough to get on good terms with them, but they are...
Probably when you started sending them checks. It's my guess. No, it was before that. But it was before that, because Jared got
introduced to Jared. Yeah.
He looks at what we're trying to do as a positive for the automotive industry as opposed to a negative.
Yeah.
And he appreciated your passion and your desire to help move the industry in the right direction. And because he appreciated that, he was more than willing to work with us and help us. And it's got nothing to do. I guarantee if we stopped doing business with them, they would still come on the show, because they appreciate what it is that we're trying to do, at least through an educational perspective for the general public out there as to what's going on.
They're incredibly generous with their expertise, their time. Again, blackbook.com is their website, and yeah, I'm always humbled by having their involvement
really
in what
people.
we do.
Yep,
and they even got you. They even got you to dress up nicely today. So
they didn't. I did it on my own, and then and I thought to myself, these are really like special guests, and so I should wear a collared shirt, and everybody else is wearing a t-shirt today. Goes to show me what I'm just going to rip this son of a. I'm going to undress as we're finishing out the show today.
So as he's doing that, folks, I'm going to pull up that Jaguar that I was talking about. This is one of the greatest benefits of the YAA car search back on joinyaa.com. Just scroll down. You got Mario over here, the researcher, Space from our community forum right here. Here are the price changes for this vehicle. August 2nd, $53,273 price point. Today, it's around $43,000. Looks like they just changed the price even today. That's a $9,000 drop. And then, Dad, it's not just in California, that vehicles in California and Jaguars. Like, let's do, I don't know, like a Chevrolet.
I think we should go out there. We should fly out there, buy that car, and then drive it cross country home. And we could stop and do some community meetups on the way home.
While I think that's a great idea, I don't know if that Jaguar will make it cross country. You might need to buy a couple. Dad, here, I just like for perspective here, it's not just Jaguars. Here's a 2020 Chevy Tahoe for sale here in Maryland. So we did California a second ago. Now we're here in Maryland. Some interesting pricing going on here. It had been all the way down at 42,000 up to 53,000, 48,000. I'm not saying every single vehicle is going to show you like a perfect Jaguar example where it goes down $9,000, but check out the price changes and the price history. And I want to mention, if you go to resources and go to the blog, today's blog post is all about why. Really, there's 5 factors that have led to used car prices becoming more negotiable. Jump down to it right here. Floor plan costs going up, demand is going down, dealers can't sell their cars at the auctions, retail prices are starting to change. Dealers want to try and make money in the F&I office. And that, Dad, leads me to my final point, which is today is the last day of our Inflation Fighter special. So if you want to join YAA as a member, use the code IFS when you join, and that'll save you 20%. We have some incredible things that are coming out next month in September. Maintenance and repair discounts. We've been negotiating diligently to get some discounts, some members-only rates at some of those big national chains like Jiffy Lube and Meineke, and even at some local shops, and a way for you to schedule them as well. That's coming for our community soon too. So super excited about what we're working on. And the IFS special lasts until tonight at midnight.
Yes. Well, I better get online and sign up.
You know, I as I was doing all that, I wasn't looking at you. You seriously took your shirt off.
I did. Yeah, I did it on camera, I believe. While you were talking about the Jaguar, I was getting back to my normal attire.
Love it, Pops. Love it. Well, we'll be back tomorrow, won't we?
Yes, we'll be back here tomorrow at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, with more news that you can use from YAA. And really, thank you, everybody, for being here today. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you again to the Black Book team. Have a great afternoon, Pops.
You do the same, handsome. I'm sure you'll be in touch with me. You always want something from me. I don't know what it is.